So yeah, let's start first. There are a couple general questions. So let's start with what made you want to be a casting director? For anyone.
I came to it sort of in a roundabout way. When I moved out to LA, I actually thought I was going to be a producer. So I spent almost 8 years on the development side of the business before transitioning to casting. So an opportunity kind of just fell in my lap to go work with a really incredible casting director named Carmen Cuba. And I said yes because I didn't know anything about the talent side of the business. And, you know, when you're a producer, you need to know about the talent side. So that's kind of how I fell into it.
Nice.
I was out here acting, and I had been in a casting office one day, and the casting director said to me, "How's it going?" And I said, "Really well, but I'm not sure. I miss theater. I love acting and stage, and I'm not sure if I'm loving this." And he said, "Well, did you ever think about casting?" And I said, "No," because casting offices were very scary places to me at that point in my life. But so he said, "Well, you should just come and help out, see if it's something you like." And I've always been the type of person who's pretty open to new experiences. So I did, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I always loved puzzles as a kid, and especially even now as an adult. And a script to me is like a puzzle, and you guys are all the amazing pieces. And so getting to work with that fantastic idea of placing actors together to figure out the perfect alchemy that helps tell a story was extremely exciting. And so I found my niche.
And for me, I was really young, straight out of college. But growing up, I loved watching movies, of course, and I loved actors. And I don't know why I thought about what auditions would be. Like, I would watch movies and be like, I wonder what it was like when they were auditioning. Like, I don't know why this entered my brain. I didn't grow up around anybody who worked in the film business. But anyways, that just kind of was always in the back of my head. And during college, I met a casting director and heard all about what she did every day. And it sounded so fascinating. And I had never really thought about, even though I was thinking about auditions, I never thought about the fact that it could be someone's job. I wasn't thinking about casting directors or whatever. And I heard what this woman's job was, and I ended up interning for her and working for her. And that was kind of the beginning of forever.
Nice. Awesome. So you guys have all worked on different genres of projects. So curious, what do you think makes casting horror different from other genres?
I'll go first. I don't think it's different. I think it's all about real grounded performances. And yeah, the stakes and the circumstances in horror movies are crazy, and there's a demon or there's someone trying to kill you or whatever. But if you don't buy the actor or the performance, and if it feels overwrought or false, then you're not going to go with it. And I think that that's true of anything, right? If it's a family drama or a comedy. So I don't think it's different.
Yeah, I completely agree with Sarah. I find that whatever genre I happen to be casting at any given moment, I always connect to character. And, it's all about that character has to believe in whatever situation they're going through and really play the stakes of it. And I agree, sometimes in horror, the stakes might be, more intense or more fantastical even, but that means that the actor has to commit to it even more to make the audience connect with them and believe it, because sometimes, you are really seeing those circumstances through the actor's eyes and through their performance. The fear that they can convey, the terror that they can convey makes you afraid. And so they really have to commit to it and believe it. So again, I don't think it's approached differently. It's just about committing to the given material and the stakes, is my opinion.
Yeah, I agree totally. And the other thing I would add to that is just the vulnerability. You have to make yourself really vulnerable in order to get to those really desperate kind of emotionally true places. And it takes a lot to open yourself up and be that vulnerable.
Yeah, I really respect actors that personally that can kind of commit to this circumstance, because there are amazing actors that I will say like have trouble sometimes with performances when they're coming into audition for horror, at least in my experience, because you're so right. It's about being vulnerable and about being open. And it's a lot to be in a room, with a couple of people and scream your face off or, cry hysterically or be really scared. You have to be able to access that within yourself. So the actors that are able to go there and convey that, I have a lot of respect for.
Cool. So you guys kind of answered the next question because it was asking about any special skills you would suggest that actors hone for a horror audition. But like you're saying, it's kind of like any other audition. But as we know, sometimes the scenes that they get do involve screaming or the high stakes or high energy or action or physicality. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions for actors when they get scenes like that? Or is it kind of what you were saying of focus on the character and keep it grounded, or any tips that, like if an actor gets a scene that's, a slasher movie or something really extreme?
We try to, at least I recommend with the filmmakers that I'm working with, that like those scenes you would save for a little bit of a later stage in like the callbacks or something. I try initially to give a scene that's more about dialogue, character, are you feeling this person? And if you are feeling that person and you're feeling connected to them, then sometimes it can be important to see their death scene or their scene where they kill someone or the scene where they watch their boyfriend or girlfriend or mom get killed, which are obviously very high stakes. My personal belief is like with horror, you will not go further on set than you go in an audition. So if an actor is not delivering in the audition, I don't think that we should cast that actor, because the audition, some people would say and other things, well, when you're on set, you have the freedom, you have the role, you have, no, if you're inhibited in that space and not able to go there, I think that that's a red flag and that you might not be able to do that when you're on set and time and money is being spent. So I really think the onus is on the actor to commit. If you get to that point where it's, you're getting really heavy, intense, dramatic material, most of the filmmakers I work with want to see it.
Similarly, can you talk about casting when the role is like the villain or the demon, or maybe it's a creature? How does that process typically work? When it's not necessarily the human normal like friend group, it's more something that might be, you might imagine it's more what you see on set. Like how do those auditions work, or do you get stunt creature performers? What's the process like for those?
I've done many a creature in my day. Yeah, I mean, listen, if it's like a human villain, a murder, whatever, then it's, a pretty straightforward audition. But for the creature type things, it's very physical. I mean, we've had for example, doing Halloween 2018, we were auditioning people for Michael Myers and we were auditioning stuntmen, and they literally were taking our casting associate and lifting her by the throat. And she's like, doing it safely, holding onto their arms. But like, it gets a little crazy. Like we've had like people crawling on the floor, like peeking out, but I think for those roles, it really is about the physicality. I mean, if they're speaking, then, it goes in the more straightforward audition category.
Yeah. So generally, what is how do you view the casting process for an original horror as opposed to like a known property? So a sequel, an adaptation, like do you cast those any differently? Are the stakes different? Is there a difference? How do you view the process when it comes to casting those?
To me, it's usually about the filmmakers and what they want. I don't personally approach it any differently, but sometimes the filmmakers will want to do some sort of fan service where they cast someone specific, to make people happy. So like when we were doing Until Dawn, Peter Stormare was in the video game that the movie was based on. And so as like a tribute to the fans, they had always wanted to cast him in the same role that he played in the video game. So like that was something that was talked about very early on as something that they wanted to do and was kind of a done deal. So that made my job easier because that was one less role I had to do.
I don't know that it affects the way that I would approach things, but I do know that if you're working on a sequel of a film that's extremely successful, like one of the It movies or the Scream movies, there is an intense amount of incoming interest a lot of times from fans and from people that just love the franchise, which can be very, very amazing to feel. But it can also be intense because sometimes you have to be secretive about the plot or the script because you don't want to give away certain parts of it. So sometimes if you're working on a known franchise, I find like we're giving out like dummy sides, like fake sides, or we're hiding certain things because you don't want things to be revealed, because you're trying to actually protect the fans and the fan base because they want to be surprised when they go see the theater. And I think in an original horror, there might be less of that because there isn't that rabid knowledge of the property already. But when you're working on something that people really know about, they're very, very invested in trying to find out what's coming up.
And I think it makes it, to add to what you're saying, I think it makes it a little harder for us because you're having to send like expiring links to, sides or, like you said, dummy sides. And it does add some work for sure.
I remember Adam and I were in the office once and we were getting so confused with the character names because we had like 3 character names for each character. I'm like, wait, is this Jill or is this John or is this Jenny?
Yeah.
They were
and
all
scenes from different, it gets confusing even for us, but it is like to keep it confidential. So we've gotten it down, but.
Do you guys use like for the Scream movies, like fake titles?
Yeah.
So that they don't know it's for Scream, like some other project name?
Yeah.
And so even the actors coming in don't know that they're auditioning for Scream.
Yeah. A lot of times, yeah. I mean, the actors don't know that they're coming in for a certain project, or if they're coming in for the project, they have no idea that they are auditioning for like a given role in the project. It's very kind of that makes it fun, I think, in terms of casting, because we really get to push ideas of people that we just know them as actors and we're excited by them and can verbalize why we think someone's right for a specific role, and they come in and have no idea what they're doing. And so it's kind of has to be a trust between actors that you know and that you're excited about, because you're basically saying, I know that you don't know what movie this is or what you're auditioning for, but trust me, it'll be cool. Just come on in and let's play.
Do the agents figure it out?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, sometimes.
Like on the director or whatever?
Yeah, okay. Sometimes they have, and if you have a good relationship, you can kind of chat through that. But sometimes working in the dark is fun. I'm always encouraging actors in whatever genre they're coming in for. Like, don't forget, like, I know this sounds crazy, but like auditioning should be fun. Like, you guys are all choosing to be actors. Like, no one's holding you at the stake being like, you must do this. So, and if they are, get them out of your lives. But so it should be really fun. And so when you're working in a sense where you don't really have access to the full script, you might not even be sure what character you're coming into audition for. Like, you really have license to play and just have fun. So it can be a good experience, I think.
One of my favorite quotes was from the late, great Phil Hoffman, who said about auditioning specifically that if you're an actor, the thing that you want to do the most is act. And so if you reframe the audition into thinking about the fact that that's your chance to act for the day, it will really free you from the obsessing over the outcome and instead allow you to really enjoy the process, which is just an amazing reframe, I think, for actors, if you can really try that and just think about it as your chance to act that day.
It's great.
It's really good advice.
I was just thinking, like how you were saying, like sometimes the actors don't have any information when they get the sides. Like they don't know if they're the killer. They don't really have context. And I know we've talked about they should focus on the character and grounded performances. Is there anything you think they could do, though, to try to like if they get the sides in the character description, like is there anything else you think they could do? Look up the filmmakers, try to figure out tone or anything? Any tips for preparing for a scene if all you have are the dummy sides? I know you kind of said you kind of have to make choices, but anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, make choices, but it's also okay to ask questions ahead of time. If you're looking at a scene or sides that you were sent and you're like, I am like, what am I doing here? Like, call the casting office or have your representative call the casting office and ask the questions to whoever you can get on the phone. And yeah, you might not be able to get every single question answered, or if you're going in person, ask questions. Because we want you to do well. We want you to be prepared. We want you to know the material and feel confident in what you're coming in to do. We're not, laughing to ourselves going like, let's give them as little as possible and see if they can get it right. It's not a test.
I love that answer because I never believed that when I was an actor. I never believed, but I now know that it's true. I never believed that I was able to ask questions. I never had that agency that I felt I could. I never believed people particularly wanted me to do well. I felt like in a position when I was going into an office. And it wasn't until I got on the other side when I was in casting that I realized every person that comes in that office, first of all, they're gifting me with their time. And second of all, it's a chance to quote unquote solve my problem, cast the role for me. I want every single person coming in to be the best person possible that they can be, because then I can do my best work. So I love questions when people ask questions. And sometimes we can't answer everyone because of things that we're able to at liberty to say or not. But anything we can say to help you achieve your best performance or feel comfortable that you have enough knowledge to put your best foot forward, that makes sense just for us and for the process. So I really love that answer.
Nice. A general one. Do you have a favorite audition story? Maybe from horror, since that's the theme.
Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise was pretty epic. I mean, it was an epic. I got scared in the room. It was myself and my associate and Bill, and he started reading the scene, and I literally got really scared.
And it was like you saw it and it just came to life in front of you.
And that was a crazy one. I mean, we had actors coming in clown costume and crazy, and Bill just came in as Bill, but he is brilliant. And it was actually one of the first auditions we saw for the role. And I just was like, that's Pennywise. I mean, he was amazing.
Yeah, kind of, I mean, not similar, but similar in that it's just like one of those auditions I'll never forget is Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out. I honestly think you could take his audition and just cut it into them. Like, it was so like down to the tear and all of it. It just was incredible to watch. I will never forget it.
That's a really good one. I don't. Mine is not a famous person, but we were down to the last role in an ensemble on a movie that I was working on, and the studio finally took the leash off me because they had given me very specific parameters about what they were looking for, and they finally said, just go find us someone great. And that's always the most freeing when they take these parameters that they've given off. And I picked a guy off Breakdowns who I didn't know. It turned out that I had seen him on a TV show, in a guest spot, but I didn't think he had auditioned for me before. And he turned in a self-tape, and he was amazing. And I made him Zoom with me the next day and do it again to see if it was a fluke. And he was great. And I was like, where did you come from? And then the next day I brought him to a director's session because everybody was already in Budapest. So prepping. So I didn't have time to ask anyone or have them see the tapes that he had done or any of the things. And then he booked the part. And so it all happened in a few days, which is rare that it happens that fast. But we were at the tail end of the movie. And he ended up being everyone's favorite character. And, he's blowing up now. So it's exciting when that kind of stuff happens. And I know sometimes people don't believe it that you pick random people off Breakdown that you don't know, but it's true in my case. that's really a thing that happened, and that's really like how he got this job.
That's cool. Kind of related, because these are kind of do's, but what are some do's or don'ts from your perspective for this room of actors, like when they're auditioning? Like you mentioned someone grabbing a throat. Like I'm sure maybe they were asked or something, but are there any physical or like performance choices, like anything that you think like is off limits or they shouldn't do, or anything that do you think works better in the room?
I mean, going off what you said about grabbing throats, I mean, this seems like a crazy thing to say out loud, but I've had people bring weapons into auditions. Don't do that.
No weapons.
No weapons. Respect people's personal space as well.
Because it is an audition. You're not shooting it. You don't have to, there's no like stunt person.
And like we get
and it's a reader.
It's a scary movie,
Yes.
but let's,
Yeah.
we don't have to go that far.
But like even like costume, like how far should they go? Like any tips like that you guys have?
I'm just kind of a no prop person in general. I've had people smoke before when they were like supposed to be smoking in a scene. I just think sometimes actors can get bogged down in the business with the props, and then it's distracting from their acting. So I say less is more in general. If there's something that you really need to do it, fine. But I've seen actors really get bogged down with props in general.
Or like glasses, or, like putting on things that, I don't know. I'm not one for costumes unless it's something, that's really appropriate. But you don't need like a full costume to come in and read.
The other thing I'd love to say is that I miss when actors were really prepared when they would come into auditions. And I think it's really tough. Like I do a lot of Zoom auditions for anyone who asks. And a lot of people don't actually take you up on the Zoom auditions, which is fine, whichever way makes them feel the most comfortable. But what I've noticed is that people ask for a Zoom audition and then they won't know the material well enough. And when you try to give them a redirect, they can't do it because they don't know the material well enough. So if you're going to do a Zoom and you're going to do it with casting, know your material as well as you can. So that way when they're giving you notes and they're giving you readjustments, you can actually implement them. Because I've seen actors who are series regulars on television shows reading while you're on a Zoom audition, thinking that you can't see their eyes moving and that they're reading right off of the computer screen. And you're not getting the full version of them because you can see them reading. I think that kind of stuff is a shame.
I agree with that. And I think it really is the best thing you can do for yourself in an audition is to know the material, be really prepared. And that really frees you up to be present and real in the audition. And, if your reader or the casting director or whoever misses their line or whatever, you don't have to break. You know the material, you know where you're going, and you're not like, oh no, it really is the best thing that you can do for yourself.
And the last thing I would say too is I've seen actors turn in self-tapes where there is no reader and they're just doing their side of the lines. And we offer the Zooms for people who can't find a reader. So rather than turn in an audition where there's no one reading the opposite lines, ask for the Zoom. Come to the Zoom if you can. I know it's not possible for every person, but we'd rather that you come to the Zoom than send in a tape where no one's reading the other lines.
Cool. We kind of touched on this a little with your story, but I think horror can be viewed by actors as kind of an easier way to get your foot in the door because of their budgets and loyal audiences. In what ways do you feel horror movies sometimes give you the freedom to cast newer actors or discoveries as opposed to maybe other genres?
I love the idea of casting discoveries, and it's one of the best things about casting, as Wittney was saying. But I don't personally think it's specific to horror. I think it's more specific to a script and the given needs of that role and the character. And some roles are more specific than others, and some roles require bigger names, and some roles require discoveries. It's kind of just a mishmash. So I think that it exists throughout all genres. My personal opinion is it exists throughout all genres. It's just more pertains to the script and the roles and the characters as opposed to the genre.
And like one thought, like with casting, because with horror, I think sometimes at least me, like sometimes there's a perception of the character in the movie, like. You don't want to suspect someone, or you don't want the audience a character to pull you out. How much do you think about that when it comes to who you audition or who you cast? Like, you want the sweet guy to die first, or stuff like that. Do you clock that when you're deciding who to read, or is it all authentically? Because I do feel like sometimes I do take a step back and imagine being the viewer. Like, does that affect your casting process?
I definitely think so. I mean, we just cast the movie The Long Walk that's in theaters right now. And the first boy that dies, we really wanted someone that would have an emotional impact for the audience. So Roman Griffin Davis, who was the little boy from Jojo Rabbit, who's amazing, like watching him die first, you knew he's such a cute little kid that's really going to affect the audience. So that definitely played into, the casting of that role. And sometimes if you're casting someone that is supposed to be the killer, but you're not supposed to know they're the killer, it might behoove you to cast someone that audiences are aware of and have a good perception of, that they think, oh, this is a nice actor, or I see this person in comedies a lot, or like whatever, because it's subverting audience expectations sometimes. So I think that you can have fun in horror films because nothing is always the way it seems on the page. You're kind of sometimes wanting to mess with audiences' perceptions one way or another to either divert them from the truth or lead them to the truth or make them feel something. And that's an exciting part, I think, of casting in horror.
I thought you did such a good job in It with Bill Hader. Yeah. Because he, was mostly known for comedy, but to see him do something so dark, which then clearly led to Barry. Yeah. But that was your really great idea. So that was a really great job.
This is kind of along the same lines, but one of the questions was about Final Girls specifically with casting. Do you have any thoughts on why Final Girls are so popular, or any thoughts you have when it comes to casting them? Or no?
I've never actually cast one. In all my horror movies, it's people live.
That's fair.
What is a final girl? Does the final girl they don't die, or they?
I think they don't die.
Standing.
Okay.
Like The Virgin.
Then I would think they're popular because they live. They come back for the sequel, right?
That's fair.
But I think we all see when we're watching a movie and there's a killer on the loose, and you identify with that final girl or final person, whatever it is. And you're like, oh no, don't do that. Oh, and then you see yourself, and you want to see them live, and you want to root for them, and you want them to win, and really just own it and go on and be strong and all of those things. So I think we all really see ourselves.
So you want someone the audience kind of connects with,
that they can see themselves in and relate to and root for.
Be like, don't go in there.
Yeah, exactly. Be smart. Yeah.
I can remember I hated horror films growing up because I was scared of them, and my sister loved them, so she used to make me watch them with her. I was terrified. And I can remember cheering, Nightmare on Elm Street, Heather Langenkamp. I can remember cheering for her because she was the one person that got away, and there was an element of you're on their side, you're rooting for them, So I think that is an element of why people love them probably.
Cool. We've kind of touched on this with some of the stories, but what's a project or role you're really proud of in the horror space that you've done?
Kind of shameless plug, Black Phone comes out this weekend. But Black Phone 1 and Black Phone 2, I just think that the actors in those movies are so exceptional. I mean, talk about a great villain, Ethan Hawke. He is just a master. And the two kids, Mason Thames and Maddie McGraw, are just really, really exceptional.
Yeah, you creep me out.
I'll do a shameless plug too. I am really, though, truly proud. It's not so much horror, it's more horrific circumstances, but The Long Walk, which is a Stephen King film that's currently in theaters. It was, and Adam and I both worked on it. It was an incredible experience, and it's a really affecting movie. And to me, the thing that makes the movie is it's not the casting, it's the actors, though, that are in the movie. It's like they're all so good and so committed, and I'm so proud of all of them because they're hard roles, and they all just committed 110%. For anyone that wants to watch a movie as an actor about commitment, it's like those actors are committed in every single scene.
What was the question?
But for a role or a project you're really proud of in the horror space.
I worked on a TV show for Showtime that not a lot of people saw called Let the Right One In. And it was based on the Swedish film. And they reimagined it, and they cast Demian Bashir in the lead. And then we had to do a big kid search for the 12-year-old daughter that played the vampire, of Demian's daughter, and then her best friend, who was her neighbor, and he was a 12-year-old boy. And so I did giant searches for both of those parts. And at the end, I counted just because I was curious. And I saw 1,000 children for those two parts combined. And the little boy had done basically nothing. I think he had been in like maybe one like co-star part or something. And the producers were so blown away by him at the callbacks, where he did like his chem read, and he got the part, and it just was really exciting to see someone who really didn't have a lot of experience kind of like win everyone over. And then after that, he got cast in like a few different Sundance movies, and he's like doing really well now. And the little girl who was in it had such hard work to do, and she'd been in a TV show before, but you know, these two kids were really the leads of the show, and to hang an entire show on, you know, 12-year-old kids is just so difficult, and most kids can't handle that like level of work. And so anyways, I'm just like really proud of how hard we worked to find those two kids.
That's awesome. We've all been doing this a long while. What do you think has changed most about the horror genre over the years, if anything, or the process of casting?
I think there's just a lot more of it right now. I don't think that the process of casting horror movies has really changed, but I just think, you know, everybody wants to try what Blumhouse has been doing for a long time. But there's also just so many more good stories to tell in the horror genre. And I think there is a horror movie for everybody now, right? Like if you don't like gory horror, there's horror comedy. Or if you don't like that, there's social horror, or, you know, it really has opened up, and there's an access point for everybody, I think.
I've gone through almost all of my normal questions. What, kind of a general one, what is a favorite horror movie performance of yours, not from your own projects, but one that has stuck with you?
Mine is Jo Beth Williams, the mom in Poltergeist. I was obsessed with this movie when I was a kid because I had a tree outside my room, and for anyone to see the movie, I thought that the tree was going to come alive and get me. And I thought she was like the coolest mom, and she was amazing. And every performance in that movie is amazing, but she is fantastic.
That's a really good one. I would say probably Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah. I think, and this is a recent one, I think Amy Madigan is still like poking at my brain from Weapons. Like that was
same.
something. Like when you like wake up at 3:00 in the morning and like get a drink of water, and then like see her face still.
Yeah. Same.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be Gladys for Halloween.
Yeah.
It'll be a
Definitely.
very popular costume.
Why do you think horror resonates so strongly with audiences? Because I feel like that's when we get people like really hardcore trying to call us and get in those movies more than any other genre. Why do you think that is? And it's scary and it's bloody, and I'm like, why are you wanting to be in this? So why do you think?
Why do the actors want to be in it, or
Yeah,
why
and why do
watching it?
like I feel like actors that I know personally are dying to be in horror movies, and so I find that interesting. Like, yeah, why is there such a fascination or passion when it comes to horror?
I think there's something about sort of exercising these horrific situations and having it have a positive outcome, which is that it's all pretend. That there's something that's kind of fun about, like getting to play act that in a way. But I think for audiences, the reason why they love it so much is that it's such a release. You know, that you can be so scared and nervous for these characters, and go through an entire emotional experience. And then the relief that you feel when it's over, you know, and that either the characters have vanquished the bad guy or, you know, however it ends. But that you've really gone through a whole emotional experience, and then you can go back to your regular life. It's kind of cathartic, if that makes sense.
I think they're so enveloping that they take you away from your actual, like, it's a complete escape. It's complete escapism. You know, when you're watching a horror film, at least in my experience, I am not thinking about, you know, my laundry or politics or the job I have to get done. I am worried about this character, like, making it to the next scene. So you're kind of just completely enveloped in the world of the film. And that, I think, at its heart, like, movies are a method of escapism in a beautiful, beautiful way. And sometimes they teach us things, and sometimes they scare us, and sometimes they make us laugh. But the best movies allow you to go on a journey for 2 hours or, you know, however long it is, and you forget your life for that time, and you just live in the world of the film.
I've also had a lot of actors tell me that horror sets are the most fun sets to work on.
Yeah.
So
That makes
maybe
sense.
the word's out.
Yeah, make a body mold, like do a whole thing. Yeah, where are they? I think, well, do you guys have any other thoughts, advice, commentary on horror? Any final thoughts you want to share before the Q&A?
Not for me.
No.
Q&A.
I did it.
Hi, thank you for taking my question tonight. We talked a lot about audience and the audience sort of fandom that goes with horror films in particular. How much do you guys take into consideration the audience preconceived notion of where a reimagined horror film is, right? So you're redoing the Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. You're casting these, you know, very like etched in sort of American fandom movies. How much do you guys take into consideration when people are blind auditioning? You know, what the fans are sort of putting out there in the universe about how they want these films to be cast. And then when you're looking at performances, are you taking into consideration, you know, they're re-auditioning for parts that are very well established? Are you looking for some sort of like, you know, hint at an homage to the other performances, or are they just completely reimagined performances? How do you guys navigate that? And then the reaction from fans, if that goes good or bad.
I mean, you're never going to please everyone, right? Especially with pre-existing IP that people have opinions about. They love it. They don't want you to make another version of it, or they're hungry for another version, but like, you got to get it just right. So I think it really is a balancing act, and you work with the filmmaker to make the movie that they envision and to cast the roles that are in alignment with that vision. And it can be fun thinking about ways to honor the fans. I think Wittney mentioned that a little earlier in the discussion. But it's all just kind of a balancing act. But ultimately, you're working with your filmmaker to make the film that they want to make. And hopefully the fans will love it.
I don't pay attention to social media at all when it comes to like fan input. And I think for that reason, because you're never going to make everybody happy. So it's not helpful to actually look at any of it.
Yeah. I mean, an example for me is our Five Nights at Freddy's film. And we worked really, very, very closely. He was involved in everything, the creator of the video game that the movie was based on. And there were a lot of things that we were like, oh, I don't really understand this, but okay. And he was right. And the fans showed up and they loved it. And he knew his fan base. And he worked with Emma Tammy, the director that he thought was the right person to make the film for his fans. And it paid off. So it really is a balancing act.
Hi, I would just love to hear from you when casting an ensemble piece. You also mentioned a puzzle earlier. So are you tending to try and build that puzzle frame first? Is there a situation where you're like, hey, we have to cast this one first in the ensemble piece? Or is it just whichever one jumps out and finds you? If you're like, well, we can't pass this up, this is the role, and it'll all fill out later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think sometimes that you can have a plan, but the best plans go awry. Sometimes it's important if you're casting a pivotal piece of maybe a family or something or a friend group to cast around them. You need to have an idea of age or type, but then an actor will come in for another role who's just incredible, and you might pivot a little bit. So I think that for me, you have an idea sometimes of who you might want to look at first, and sometimes in a script it might inform the rest of the ensemble. But once that first piece of the puzzle kind of lays in, then you start building out from there.
I'd be curious to know, and you touched just a little bit on it, but what is the most unconventional audition or self-tape that each of you have seen, and did it work? Because I know you touched about even people coming in dressed as a clown for Pennywise, but I'm just curious how far people have taken it and if their creativity paid off or not.
I did a pilot that was a remake of Less Than Zero, the famous 80s movie with Robert Downey Jr. and James Spader. And one of the actors came dressed in I don't even know what you call them, but one of those jumpsuits that people used to wear to play tennis and stuff, the zipper up jackets and the kind of puffier pants that were kind of really shiny and had one earring in. And he ended up getting the part. And I do think that part of the reason why the filmmakers loved him so much was that he just felt so 80s in that kind of getup, but it doesn't always work, so I'm not necessarily endorsing it, but I'm just saying I would say that's probably the most unconventional that I saw.
There's the idea of being burnt on a television series, right? You're cast here, and now you don't get to exist elsewhere in the world because you're established as that. Have you had any instances in the casting process where, yes, you want to pull in this actor, however, they were just in another horror property, they're burnt in the genre or oversaturated to the audience? Has that ever come to play?
I think it can, yeah. You don't want to see the same actor play the same types of roles over and over. So I think we do have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, and that's in all genres, I think, not just horror. You're always, I think, taking into an account what an actor has just been in or what they've done. You don't necessarily want to cast them in a role that they may have just done, but yeah.
I think also actors don't want to just continue to keep playing the same part over and over again, in my experience. They want to stretch and do different things, and they might revisit, a genre or whatever again at a different point in their career. But in my experience, people want to kind of hop around and try different things, do different things.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for doing this. Y'all touched about going all out in your auditions and stuff. And when in person, which give me more of those, love those, versus the self-tape, I feel like it's easier to go all out. or is even a Zoom, but when you're at home, self-tape, poor actor, how physical do you think would be possible to do? No excuses, just like for your vision and just the camera.
Well, I'll just clarify, since I had said go all out. I just mean all out with level of commitment.
Sure.
So to Wittney's point, like really being prepared with the material and knowing the material, really committing to the stakes of the scene. So, I don't think it's that if you're in a scene and someone, explodes in front of you, you have to get your roommate to throw a bucket of blood on you or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I just mean really kind of like the onus, I think, is on the actor to really make the people that are watching it feel that terror, that excitement, that fear, whatever it is. So it's really, I mean, going all out with the level of commitment, to really committing to the stakes of the scene, even if those stakes might seem higher than we all experience in real life. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you're worried about physicality, I think you mentioned, like on a tape, like we understand that you're in your house and that you're not on a set and you do the best you can. If you have to have, somebody who's helping you, like give you a sound cue or something, little things like that can go a long way and help you in your performance. We don't expect you to like throw yourself against a wall.
Did any of you guys see the Severance audition that they released of Helly's character? She did so much, with a very small frame. And I think it's like, if you haven't seen it, go home and look it up because it was really incredible. But like you were saying earlier, you could cut that audition into the show and you wouldn't even kind of see a difference in her performance of like what she actually did in the show. It was so similar. And, but you saw how committed she was, just even in that self-tape.
Outside of the pressures of studio or your director trying to have a bookable name or actor who's established, for other roles, do you feel like social media and all that kind of stuff is still affecting how you decide on an actor, or do you feel like you have the leeway to cast or try to cast actors regardless of outside influences out of the room? If that makes sense.
I never pay attention to social media, but I did do a project more recently where the studio cared about it, and I was really kind of shocked because I'd never worked on a project where anyone cared so much about social media followers. It's just not something that I've ever paid attention to. I don't know about you guys, if it's like a conversation that you've had, but the filmmaker didn't care. It was really like the studio's marketing department that cared.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question about the state of location filming. Is there anything coming to LA, or is it mainly Atlanta, Vancouver? And how does that affect smaller roles for either local hire, or do they fly them out? How does that work?
I've been encouraged just to be reading about all of the initiatives to bring filming back to LA. So I don't know how active it is just now, but I know that I keep up on it, as I'm sure we all do. And it seems that they are making a concerted effort, especially post the fires, to really bring production back to LA, which I think is a welcome change.
I'm working on a TV show, actually shooting in LA, and it's the first show that I've done that's shot in LA since 2019. Everything else that I've done has shot elsewhere. And what I will say is that on this particular project, they're only allowing me to hire LA actors. So that's a really good thing. And but for my previous projects, we've had to hire local actors for the smaller roles. They won't let you bring in people. So that is a real thing.
Hi, good evening. My question is for Rich because I just watched The Long Walk for the third time last night. No spoilers, but my question for you is, the most impressive thing about that movie for me were all of the performances, specifically all of the young actors that are in it, and how damn good they were. So my question for you is, what was that casting process like? Because I'm very curious.
It was incredible. I cast that movie over 8.5 years with 3 different directors and 2 different studios. It was a hard movie to get off the ground. And so it was a little bit like I felt, because I actually got 3 full casts, and then the movie fell apart twice. And so I felt like a little part of me died when that happened. And so it was really hard to start it up again for the 3rd time. But I love the script so much, and I love the characters, and the thing that kept me going was the commitment of all of the actors that came in. They really just loved the roles and the world as much as, Francis Lawrence, the director, and I did. And we put them through their paces, and every one of them had to audition with, really tough emotional scenes, and they just went there. And it's an incredible film because everyone this isn't a spoiler alert, but in the film, no one knows each other at the beginning of the film, and in the course of a very, very short period of time, they each become a lifeline for each other. So you needed people that had no chemistry, but could develop intense chemistry immediately. So it was an amazing, amazing experience, and I feel really, really lucky that we got all of the actors that we did, and that everyone said yes.
Race and horror have always kind of had a interesting relationship. So with the change in the view of DEI in the country, has there been a shift in the kinds of projects that come to your office or the demographics of the cast that are being written and requested?
Not from my point of view, and I'm not interested in changing the way that things are. We have to write characters that represent all humans. We have to cast actors that are representative of what, real everyday life looks like. So.
Agreed.
Agreed too.
Thank you to our panel for being here and sharing their knowledge. And thank you for being a great audience.